Okay, so I often get asked this one question, which is how do I break into the games industry or the animation industry or whatever? So this is just sort of a very quick kind of generalized way, I guess, kind of a checklist of things that you should probably be going over if you are intending to break into an industry. So the first one is be focused. Don't just say I want to be in the animation industry. It's important that you choose a role because every job that you take on, if you're in animation, or if you're in video games, you're making movies, your cinematography, there's always a production pipeline. So by that I mean if you were to have, let's say you're going to make a video game, right? That means you'll have a guy who does coding, but then you may have someone else who does art. You'll have another person who does writing. So you have these different roles within this production pipeline. Um, the other thing that's kind of important to understand is that if you're dealing with animation, this is especially obvious in like traditional animation, is that you'll have a person who writes, and then you may have a screenwriter, and a screenwriter will take just something that's written more or less like a novel, or just take something that's more like a point form outline, and they will turn that into a screenplay, which is a sequence of shots, and then that sequence of shots also has to go off to a storyboard artist who will take take that script, take that screenplay, and create all of the necessary storyboards to show those shots happening, and then those storyboards have to go off to the key artists, right? The people who do the keyframing, and they have to be able to look at the storyboards and create the key animations, and then you'll have the key animations just go off to the in-betweeners. And so see what I mean? So there's this pipeline, right? But the baton is basically being passed from one person to the next person to the next person to the next person. So they have many of these different roles. All these roles are full-time jobs, and you have to choose one of these roles. You can't do it all unless you want to be an independent animator, in which case, fine, you're doing them all. But the thing is that you're still going to have to know all of these roles, and you will have to be competent at all of them, and be able to do them all as if, you're able to do them like a full-time job. So be focused. If you're trying to work in the industry, work for a company, you're not going to be able to work there as an independent. You can only work there kind of as a cog in the machine doing one particular role, but be able to do that role really, really well. So you have to identify the skills required for your role. If you're going to be doing storyboarding, you have to understand visual storytelling. You got to be able to understand cinematic continuity. I'm not going to explain all of the skills required for each one of these roles. It's too much. I don't have enough time to record the whole video. But whatever it is, find out which skills are required for your role, and you have to be prepared to do these things for 8 to 12 hours a day and beyond. Um, and you're just going to be doing this like constantly. That is the one thing you're going to be doing if you work at a company. They need someone who can fulfill that role. They know exactly what he's doing, and you got to be able to crank this stuff out. The other thing is I think it's because you're working with a pipeline, because someone is taking your work and going to be, or you may be taking someone else's work and doing your job upon it, and then taking that thing that you've done and giving it to someone else. They're going to do their job upon your work. I call these people the people who hand you the work and the people that you hand the work to. I call them your prior and your second, right? So the thing is that you should be able to be at least minimally capable of doing what your prior can do and what your second can do. This means that if you're doing something like, say, if you're like an in-betweener, right? If you're an in-betweener, you should also be capable of doing some amount of key animation, right? Like you should be able to do some keyframe, and then also as an in-betweener, you hand your work off to the cleanup artist. You should be able to clean up you should be able to clean up work as well. Be minimally capable of these things because it's good to be able to understand what kind of work will be coming to you, and this way you have it just helps things mesh a lot better. And then also it's good to be able to do your seconds work, right? If you have an in-betweener, you have to be able to do cleanup as well, because this way you understand what the cleanup artist needs, right? You don't make crappy artwork that they can't clean up that is just horrible, and that just is an accident waiting to happen. So be able to do the jobs of the person before you in the pipeline, and the people, the jobs of the people after you in the pipeline, to some degree. Yes, community is incredibly strong. It is a very strong point, very important. If you're getting into animation, find your local animation association. There are a lot of these, movies or any of these kinds of filmmakers. Usually, there's an association of just generally people in the industry who like to gather together in the community. They like to talk about this kind of stuff. If you're into animation, no doubt there's probably an animation association. For games, there's the IGDA, the Independent Game Developers Association. These associations, they have chapters, and sometimes there's a minimal fee for membership. Sometimes they don't even require membership, but they often hold these events where you can attend them, and they'll explain things to you. They'll show how some of these things are done, and it won't be they may take the thing is that these are real outings. You go out there, they'll be speaking for several hours, and you get a real behind the scenes look, not just the kind of look that you get from when you look at the special features on a DVD. That's not the same thing. And plus you get to ask, real industry people, real questions. You don't get this kind of watered down stuff that I'm giving to you right now. Definitely do join the community. And plus, when you join the community, you meet a lot of people who you could potentially be working with. And so, this is kind of, in the beginning, you might be kind of quiet. You can be kind of quiet at the beginning. Probably be rather observant. The more confident you get, the better you get at your work. Then you can actually begin to, speak to people. You actually go up and talk to people. Don't just be a wallflower. You can ask them, a lot of these questions. All these people are just regular people like you or I. We all go to the bathroom. We all eat lunch. We all, the only difference is just when we do our day job, some of us are just better at doing this particular thing over and over all day long. And so you want to talk to these people and, just get involved with the community. All right. And plus all these things where I talk about, identifying the skills required for your role and that kind of thing. If you don't know what skill you need or what you don't know anything about the pipeline, this is why you get, associated with the community, is because you want to ask them these questions. You want to ask them these questions. You want to ask them what it is that they got to do 8 to 12 hours a day, and you want to ask them what kind of problems that they run into. You want to ask them, what makes their job not so smooth and what you got to be able to deal with. Okay. So, and also ask them, what does it mean to be competent? To me, being competent means being able to do more than the job that I want to do, rather than just being barely capable of doing that job. Like, take for instance, why do I draw engine blocks? Why do I draw tinfoil? Why do I draw, still lifes with like tons of detail down to like the tiniest little bit? Why do I do that? It's because when I do that stuff, even though I'm drawing mostly simplified cartoony characters, it just makes my regular job so much easier. To me, it makes it like chopping wood. It's just so easy. It yields instant results when I do, the regular stuff, because I've busted my ass and, practice at the really, really hard stuff, and it's just, be able, like, you have to get used to just frequently overwhelming yourself. You just have to the only way you ever get better is if you overwhelm yourself and you wind up in a desperate situation, because that's the only time you're really thinking and you're really observing and you're really seeing everything. Because if you're just doing the stuff you're comfortable with, you fall into routine, and then you're no longer awake and you're not learning. So be used to being under a lot of pressure even before you get into your job, because when you get into your job, there's going to be tons of pressure. And like I say, don't wait to be hired to be under a lot of pressure. Put the pressure on yourself now, and be prepared. Like, try to be overqualified. Be overqualified is good. This is all about getting into a job. Be overqualified for your work. Now, besides being able to just do skills, like in my case, I say drawing boxes, being able to control form, being able to, render something. Those are skills, but it's not the same as experience. You need experience using those skills. So just having all the basic skills is not enough. You have to be able to make things with these skills. You have to put them towards some sort of useful purpose. And so that's what I call experience, right? You need experience using these skills and chaining these skills together to, make useful things. Now, a lot of companies will say, well, we want someone with work experience. They don't want some freaking noob who just like is falling all over the place. They might be skilled, but they're still a skilled noob, and they're just not able to work within the pipeline. They're not able to create anything that could be called a product that could be sold. because these places, they all have to pay the rent, they all have to pay their people, they got to pay you. They don't want a noob. They need someone with work experience. So the problem is, how do you get work experience if no one will ever give you work experience? Well, what you got to do is don't wait for a job to come along and give you that work experience. Don't wait for a job. Just do the job. Just like, how do I explain this? In my case, right? I'm trying to break into the video games industry. I'm not waiting for Ubisoft to hire me. I'm not waiting for, this company or that company to hire me. What I do is I would look and see, what does the company, what kind of work do they do? What kind of work do they generate? And, look at the current people who are filling the positions that you want. If you want to be a concept artist, you got to look at the concept artist's work. Look at, if you want to get into, say, Blizzard, you got to look at Blizzard concept art. You got to be able to do stuff like that, right? So that means if you have to do fan art, so be it. But you've got to be able to do stuff at the level, if not better, because you're going to have to replace someone, or they're going to have a reason to hire you on. You got to be able to do stuff that is generally better than what they are already putting out. And the reason for that is because, hiring a person on is just, it's a pain in the ass, and they got to pay someone, they got to fill out paperwork, and it's they got to make phone calls, and if they have to do relocation, if you're working in another place, you got to give them a really good reason to hire you. You have to be able to do stuff that is better than what they're putting out, and you got to be able to do it. You got to be able to crank this stuff out regularly. And so, I would look at a lot of these other artists. The people who do get the jobs are generally people who would be able to do this, fan art, like the one guy who did, StarCraft. He basically did StarCraft fan art of all these different characters. But the thing is that his stuff was better than, the stuff that Blizzard was putting out, and he was putting it out regularly, like every day he would crank out another one, and it was really, really beautiful. And they hired him. He eventually wound up making artwork for their trading card game. It's like that's all I can say. It's just, don't wait for the company to hire you. Just find out what kind of work that they make and do it better than them, and be able to do it regularly. So the thing about breaking into the industry is more about just being a really good worker. The goal is to make it easy for them to imagine you filling one of their desks and seeing you as more of a help than a burden, right? You got to be able to, through your work and through your portfolio and through your work output, show them that you're already working for them. They just haven't paid you yet. They're just not paying you on a regular basis. You're just not in one of their buildings yet. That's what you have to be, if you want to break into the industry. Now, that's just being competent. Looking competent. People look at things like portfolios and resumes, and yes, fine. These are formalities in the end. If you're already very competent, and you're able to impress the higher ups, then looking competent. This kind of stuff is really just kind of, again, this is kind of where people see the breaking into the industry. It's dealing with HR people. Yes, put together a portfolio of your very best work. Keep it tight. Nobody cares about your progress. No one wants to see your early crappy drawings. Yes, you've gotten better now, but really no one cares about that. Keep in mind that there are a gazillion portfolios constantly, coming in, and so they have to go through a giant stack of these portfolios. And so, by the time they get to yours, they're gonna have seen a lot of crappy portfolios. You got to show them something better than that. So I say keep it tight, tighter than a fish's asshole. So, and then the other thing is, you got to be able to, just because they say, like, let's put that towards the end. There we are. Yes, when you do your resume, yes, also keep your resume tight, keep it relevant. Keep your cover letter tight and relevant. Everybody loves animation and games. Everybody loves these things. You're no different. These are not reasons that they should hire you. When you write in reasons that you hire you, don't just write that stuff in. This is why I generally actually don't put that much faith in stock in resumes and cover letters, but I guess a lot of employers do. They do it to, I guess you do it just to show that you're not insane, that you're not crazy. But I just find there's you can write about your enthusiasm, you can write about, your skills, or you can demonstrate it. And I prefer demonstration. I'm a man of action rather than a man of words. Um, Keep your resume relevant. Just list down the things that are the most important. Um, I guess generally speaking, the resume and the cover letter are just things to make sure, gateways to make sure that you're not entirely insane and that you're not, a person with the IQ of a walnut. So do have good spelling and grammar. Do spell check. Show your resume to some actual people, like not just, your brother, but I mean, show it to someone who really has good English skills, someone you can trust. I don't know, show it to your dentist or whatever, But the thing is this: is that have someone who is very good at proofreading look it over. Don't just, kind of hash together on some line paper and then send it in like that. That does not impress anyone. And don't fill space. Don't just feel that just because it has to be on 2 pages that you have to fill it all up. I find that it's much better to keep something really, really tight and competent. Just keep it tight, keep it relevant. And of course, after you get that, again, it's like maybe a good time to show your stuff, your resume, is when you go to the community, right? If you're getting into animation, that kind of thing, have other people proofread it for you, right? Have them proofread it for you and fix up errors and that sort of thing. And get them to look at it, because the thing is that this is kind of a nice way to have them look over your resume and your cover letters on an informal basis, right? But I still think that I guess don't necessarily go in there and get the creative director to look at it, unless he seems like a really amicable guy. Some of these people don't necessarily like having their time wasted. Some of them are not so bad, but the thing is this: just show it to the lower ranking people first, and get their advice on it, and don't come there with like a giant phone book of a resume, or something like that. Just something really light, and just say, hey, I'm trying to break into the industry. I've got my other portfolio, I've got my other stuff, but I need someone to proofread this. Could you help me, right? And if they have time, great. They don't, well then, find the next person. But don't be a pest. But do it's like, don't pester the same person too much. Just be really, really, being soft spoken kind of helps in this case. And then if you do get that actual interview, or if you are at the community and you're in front of one of these people and you want to show them what it is that you can do as well as your portfolio, you should be able to perform your trade under observation. And that means, be able to make great napkin and post-it drawings on the spot. Be able to have your sketchbook out, and be able to make new sketches while someone is watching. You can't be afraid to sketch in public, and you can't be afraid to work in public. These are, because once you're in a game company, you're now in public. There's going to be other people watching, scrutinizing. Your work's going to be under the microscope. So get these 2 things fixed, get them solved. You should be getting these things solved right from day one. As soon as you know what skills you can do, you have to be able to do these 2 things. You have to, or post them online, or, get people to see them. Not necessarily so that you can get a job, but rather so that you can overcome your stage fright. You've got to be able to do this stuff, on demand. And like that's also what streaming's good for. If you do live streaming, it's a good way to get your stuff in public. But be able to first you start with doing your exercises in public. Drawing cubes in public, boxes in public, being able to do it really, really, really well. Everything that I, being able to do life drawing, solo life drawing, because that's also public drawing, and be honest about your work. You got to be able to just work to a point where you're comfortable with, like, how do I explain this? Be able to work, be able to produce work to your own standards. The work, find what your standards are. Be honest about your standards. Figure out how good you want your stuff to be. get to the point where you can draw stuff that you yourself like. You know, that's where I'm at. You know, I'm finally at that point. I think I've been drawing for like maybe 6 years. I'm finally at that point where I'm you know, sometimes able to create work that fits my initial vision, and there's nothing I would want to change about it. You know, even if I could go back, I'm like, no, you know what? It's exactly the way I wanted it. But that took time. You know, that took like six or so years. You know, but now I can do that, and I can do it in public. And I feel like, you know, now I'm at a level where I could go and work for, you know, such and such a company, any company that I'd like to go to. You know, I feel like I'm ready to finally apply for a job and that kind of thing. So yeah, that pretty much covers all I want to talk about. But how you break into an industry, and yeah, that's that.